So if you would introduce yourself.
I'm Mike, known as Nuclear Mike, from Synshop, Las Vegas.
Why are you called Nuclear Mike?
I used to work in the nuclear biz, and in fact, nuclear weapons testing at the Nevada test site. That separates me from all the other Mikes here.
All right. And what's your passion at this space? What kind of things are you into here?
Electronics and robot building. I've taken this up as a hobby. I'm retired, so I basically now have 6 Saturdays and a Sunday, so I now have time to do this stuff. You know, things I couldn't do when I was actually working. That's not unusual here, by the way. There's several other retired people who come back and work on things because they have free time now to do things.
All right. And where did you pick up these skills that you're using to do these projects from your work, or did you always have a talent for that kind of thing?
A little of both. I did a lot of real-time control and data acquisition type programming, and a lot of it was done on small computer systems. So to me, the easiest part of this sort of thing is actually the software, as opposed to the hardware. I was a software developer. Although, because I did embedded, well, it's inevitable you're going to have to learn hardware too in order to make your software work. And one basic reason I got into this stuff is I've been at this for a long time, a really long time. And the things like the entry price of this hardware is basically, as far as I'm concerned, has dropped to zero. I can remember when this stuff used to cost a whole lot more than it does today, and I can remember when it didn't exist. So this is sort of an opportunity. What I'm in the middle of building here is a this is sort of a prototype robot. It's designed to be autonomous, and its purpose is that I'm going to be able to turn it loose basically in a room and have it cruise the room and build an internal map of where it can and can't go on the floor, and then navigate the room, or be able to put the thing down and have it orient itself and then navigate. And it has to do it autonomously. It's no challenge to build an RC car type thing. The real challenge is to make it run on fairly primitive hardware. I'm using, for example, I'm building it right now using an Arduino Uno, standard Arduino Uno. They sell them everywhere. You can get the Chinese ones for like $12. You know, they just dirt cheap. This is an off-the-shelf chassis. It comes as a kit. You got to put it all together. It's basically the frame, the drive motors. It's got a little servo motor on the front for its little sensor, batteries, and this is what you get. You have to supply the brain and the wiring, and you get to design that and puzzle it out. This piece, by the way, is the controller for the motors, driven by the computer. And like I said, it's going to be a prototype forever. So your building skills are a bit challenged here, because you know deep in your heart you're going to be taking this thing apart and putting it together about 972 times. And as you know, for prototyping, that's what happens. And this is not a big computer, and it's not fast, and it's not big. And the amusing challenge is going to be come up with work around the various limitations of the equipment. Plus, you get a real appreciation for the building autonomous vehicles in general, because it's like one issue after another seems to be popping up. So it's sort of a voyage of discovery.
So, if young people were interested in learning and doing some of the things that you do, what would you recommend as places to start, or any tips you might be able to offer to them?
This, I'm a little vague on this because I don't know anybody in the schools, or quite frankly anybody starting out. But back when I started this, like 40 or 50 years ago, you actually got steered into it. You were encouraged to go into it. But you know, the Cold War was in full swing back then, and you know, if you showed any talent for this sort of thing, they encouraged you to you know, to go and you know, learn to do this sort of thing. I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, and back then you took basically a huge aptitude test, basically in the 3rd grade. And if you did well on this test, depending on how you did on this test, you would actually be steered discreetly into various career tracks. It was actually called tracking or something like this, and you would be encouraged to go into different things. You know, you'd be encouraged, and it was the industrial Midwest, and basically people who didn't score really high were basically going to be trained as, you know, machine operators on an assembly line, and I actually did pretty good on the math and science part, so I was basically being trained to be like the plant engineer or something along those lines. And they were fairly open about it sometimes. I had a machine shop class in like the 8th or 9th grade, and the instructor came in and he looked down and he saw me and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I told him, and he said, "You're supposed to be going to college." Because back then, you know, like only a few people went to college, not everybody. And then he explained the whole system. He said, "Remember those tests you took in the 3rd grade?" He said, "You've been put on the engineering track." And they weren't subtle about it at all. I mean, I had specialized classes in the 6th grade, 7th grade after school. You know, encouraged to work on scientific stuff. And needless to say, they don't do this anymore. I guess there was a big stink about it, like in the 70s or 80s, and they stopped. But that's how you came up in the old days. And a little weird, but true.
Yeah.
And you put your finger on what's sort of a problem, and it's the getting started problem. How do you get started? And I guess you would say, you know, basically it's the old joke: how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can get this hardware like at really low prices now, like, you know, $50 gets you started. And now it's a matter of you have to go, you know, you can get books on the subject, and you can experiment, you know, work your way through the books. And if you have access to a place like this, then you can get access to prototyping hardware like breadboards and parts and test equipment, things you can't normally afford. And you can use that to help you get going. Plus, you run into people that know this a lot better than you do, and you can kind of pick their brains and, you know, and learn from them.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say to other retirees who may be looking to explore other aspects, who haven't explored this yet, what makerspaces and communities of hackerspaces?
Well, you can sit on the couch and watch TV, or you can step up and, you know, branch off into something else. You know, your choice. And I did nothing for a couple of years after I retired. I got bored. You know, it's that simple. I just sort of stumbled into the place. Mm-hmm. And so that works.
Now, some people have made a point of distinguishing a makerspace from a hackerspace, at least preferring one term over the other. Do you have a preference?
I have no preference.
And how would you define a space like this? Who belongs in a space? What kind of community is in a space like this?
Well, you can't be afraid to experiment on stuff. You can you should always try to move forward on your skills. Always try to become better. Try to learn new things. And there's no shortage of stuff you can learn. You can just try different things out, see what you like. And in a lot of cases, you may not know what you like until you actually try it. So come in and start learning by doing. That'd be my recommendation.
You ready? And then one of the things I ask a lot of people as I go is, as I go to other spaces after this, are there any things you're curious to hear from other spaces about what they're doing and what's going on in the spaces with the people in the space?
It's always interesting to hear how other people do things, because you should never be ashamed to steal all of their good ideas. And you get their good ideas, by talking to different people, seeing what works for them, what doesn't work. And in some cases, things, surprises and traps, things you shouldn't be doing. So other than that, all I can say is, step up and get started.